Louis B. Mayer was a villain, but he was a necessary one. Without him, we wouldn't have the golden age of Hollywood. But the golden age came with a lot of darkness, and Louis B. Mayer sits at the center of that darkness. He was controlling and harsh, and at the same time, he appeared to be fatherly. Like a father, he tried to do what was best for his stars, but his best sometimes could be monstrous. This is the story of the most conflicted personality of the Hollywood Golden Age era. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you're new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Matentas channel. Louis B. Mayer was the esteemed studio boss of MGM and had a conflicting personality. On the one hand, you could call him all sorts of names. On the other hand, you could praise him. Mickey Rooney, a notorious actor who managed to get on the wrong side of Mayer, frequently had kind words for the man. On the other hand, Elizabeth Taylor hated Mayer and called him a monster. Elizabeth revealed that when she was young and new to MGM, Mayer went on one of his famed rages that usually made stars weep and whimper. Taylor didn't cry, and she certainly didn't whimper. It was the opposite. She was ready to fight Mayer when he kept on insulting and cursing out Elizabeth's mother. Taylor squared up to the honcho and threatened to harm him if he ever talked to her mother like that again. It was a brave thing to do and showed how much of a dual-natured person the MGM boss was. This was the same man that put women on a pedestal and almost worshipped them. When he was running a theater, the man had a woman-only section. Also, he portrayed women as angels in his films and praised them. The studio head even admitted that he worshipped good women and saintly mothers. One time, he even fought Erich von Stroheim, a director, for making an insulting comment against women. Who knew the studio boss packed a mean punch? Well, Erich did, as he found himself on the floor after Mayer hit him. Although there was a downside to how the powerful MGM boss praised women. He had the idea of them being pure, which led to devastating consequences for some of his stars. Judy Garland suffered due to this, but let's save that for later. His perception of purity made him have to talk with June Allison. June was dating the married David Ross, and Louis told her to end things if she cared about the public perception of her. Well, June should know better than to have an affair with a married man. Those rarely end well, and end in the worst way possible in Hollywood. However, trying to keep or view women saintly didn't stop Mayer from being a chronic cheat. He constantly cheated on his wife. Sometimes it was with actresses. But it wasn't all the time that the actresses warmed his bed. There was one who refused, and it brought out Mayer's dark side. Jean Howard was the actress who got away. When Mayer saw her, he wanted to have a relationship with her. He wooed the actress with all the skill he could muster, and even promised to divorce his wife if she just agreed to have a relationship with him. The actress ran as fast as her legs could carry her. She was stubborn about not having a relationship with Mayer, and she had an idea. Jean thought that hooking up with another man would scare Mayer away. It did, but the feared honcho didn't go quietly. He ensured that the man the actress hooked up with, Agent Charles Feldman, wouldn't be able to work with MGM again. Charles couldn't even enter the MGM lot, and none of his clients got signed by the studio. With such incidents, you would wonder why anyone would like the dual-natured studio head, especially folks like Mickey Rooney, who the man threatened. There was the iconic conversation Mickey had with Mayer, where Mayer said, "I don't care what you do in private, just don't do it in public. In public, behave." Mickey, fearful, promised the esteemed filmmaker that he would behave properly. Well, the way the man showed affection for his stars, it's normal for some to like him. There was that time the leader of MGM covered up for Clark Gable. Allegedly, Clark was driving recklessly, causing an accident that killed a woman. The boss swung into action, twisted the facts that could have gotten Clark into trouble, and would have made the studio lose a box office magnet. So to ensure his star actor would be safe from the law, Mayer got another person to take the fall for Clark. Also, some sources claim that the man regularly bribed the Los Angeles Police Department to ensure that his stars could avoid the law. Mickey could have been one of those stars who regularly got away with things, making him loyal to Mayer. The man looked out for the stars that made money for the studio, but not always. He was one of Lionel Barrymore's constant visitors when he was confined to a wheelchair due to arthritis. Still, he remained the villain. He was the villain that needed to exist for things to work. The crazy part? Mayer knew he was the bad guy. He embraced it. He once told his ace in the hole, Irving Thalberg, that he would be the bad guy and that Irving should stick with being good. A pity their friendship would end in the most chilling betrayal. Louis B. Mayer wasn't always Louis B. Mayer. His original name was Lazar Meyer, and he was born in July 1884 in Belarus. Some reports claim his family fled from Belarus because of religious reasons to Long Island, New York, USA. Then he moved to New Brunswick, Canada, but life was still difficult for them. The family couldn't speak a lick of English, and it limited the jobs the parents could do. At some point, Mayer's mother worked as a chicken saleswoman, selling chicken from door to door. When the family finances suffered, Louis had to leave school and join his father's struggling scrap metal business. However, Louis came through for the business when he met John Wilson, a man he would worship throughout his life. John was a tin manufacturer and offered Mayer unusable copper trimmings as scrap. Eventually, Louis B. Mayer left Canada for Boston, looking for a better life. He married and had 2 daughters. Louis dreamed of joining the big leagues, and his path of reaching that was entertainment. Using everything he owned and even his wife's ring as collateral in a pawn shop, Louis bought a theater, invested, and improved it. He put some shows on there and eventually went to Hollywood. Partnering with other businessmen, MGM came into existence, and using everything at his disposal, he eventually became the studio's president. Louis had a vision of what entertainment should be. He was a man of morals, well, mostly, and he wanted his films to portray morals. His motto was for his films to be family-friendly, and he did all he could to ensure they stayed that way. The big-shot producer had a problem with how the studios at the time portrayed sexuality on screen. Scandals about the prominent stars were flying about in the pages of newspapers, and the largely conservative society was getting more annoyed by the day. Louis was worried that if production studios didn't find a way to control their stars, the era of movies would end in America. So Mayer became different. His films were squeaky clean. Even his husband and wife characters did nothing remotely sexual on screen. The man ruled his studio with an iron fist, portraying himself as a strict father figure for the stars he signed. This was the tactic that he used to lure in the sensational Irving Thalberg. Irving was already known around Hollywood for his genius in filmmaking. When Mayer found out Irving, a central part of filmmaking at Universal Studios, was tired of how Universal always tried not to invest heavily in his films, he hatched a plan. He promised to always treat Thalberg fairly, like a son, and poached the young director from Universal. Thalberg joined MGM, and Mayer made good on the promise. He shielded Thalberg and became the villain on his behalf. The young director got to do what he wanted to do. He had a team of writers, and like Mayer, he was an efficient man. While other directors like Erich von Stroheim left the studio even after making a hit film like The Merry Widow, Irving remained. However, cracks began to show between Mayer's relationship and Thalberg's, but Irving remained an essential part of MGM's filmmaking. The man had the magic touch. Mayer and his genius director fought over the nature of the films Irving wanted to make. While the MGM producer understood that quality production needed money and loved to invest in them, Mayer also wanted to recoup the investment. It was only blockbuster movies that everyone in the audience could relate to, that could give Mayer the return on investment he needed. This didn't matter to Thalberg. Thalberg was no businessman. He remained an idealist to the core. All he wanted to do was just make literary films. He and the villainous producer reached a compromise, but the genius director made a crucial mistake. He underestimated Mayer's ruthlessness. The signs were there. Mayer didn't support Thalberg's film The Crowd to win an Academy Award because he didn't like it. Do you know the crazy part? The Academy was the producer's brainchild. In 1927, Mayer pushed for the creation of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. He even sponsored the Academy's first dinner party. although Mayer imagined the Academy for a different purpose entirely. Honestly, he was a great visionary. The film industry was becoming fractured. Everyone wanted to create a powerful corner for themselves. The esteemed producer didn't want that and wanted to keep unions to a minimum. The Academy was the best way to achieve that, and soon it began to issue awards to films. Initially, the awards were by negotiation among the big names. Louis negotiated for other people in his studio to win, but not the man he claimed he would look after. Unfortunately, Thalberg suffered a heart attack, but he didn't die yet. After the heart attack, Irving's doctors told him to take a break and left him with no other choice. He took it. It was the opportunity that Mayer needed, and Mayer betrayed Irving, who he famously called his son. He brought in another talented young director to replace him. This was how Mayer operated, and no one was immune, not even his most prominent stars. Judy Garland suffered under this man, but her mother was the real villain in her story. Garland's mother put her in the line of fire. Her mother was a performer, and while her daughter had the natural affinity for the stage, she began to use her in part of her acts when she was little. Also, she took the young girl on tours around America, where young Judy would begin to sing at the different venues before she eventually landed in Hollywood. When she landed in Hollywood, her hell began at the studio famed for producing family-friendly films. There was no friendliness in how MGM treated her. The actress was 13 when she got to the studio, and Mayer signed her without taking a screen test. Soon, he put her in her first film, and at 14, she had a star power that overwhelmed Betty Grable. The audience loved her, and that was where the problem began. MGM wanted to preserve their star the way the audience wished her to be, young and lean. The process of keeping their star young and lean was a brutal one. Right from a teenager, the studio restricted the food she could eat. When the actress wanted to snack on the food available at the studio, they removed it from her as soon as she settled in to eat it. While kids her age were eating chocolate sundaes and whipped cream, the star could only fantasize about such treats. Starving her wasn't the only thing he did to make her look young. Mayer had the studio cap her teeth, which changed her nose's shape. If Judy didn't think things could get worse, they did. When MGM decided to cast Garland as Dorothy for The Wizard of Oz, after Shirley Temple and Deanna Durbin were unavailable, things got crazier. Before then, MGM tracked what their star ate, sharing memos on every slight weight gain. But they couldn't cheat nature. Their star had begun to blossom into a woman. They tried to hide it by having her wear a cloth that blurred her shape for the film. How Garland managed to act amazingly was a mystery. She was hungry and stressed, yet she worked a masterful performance. You would think the studio would learn and cut her some slack, especially as the film was a success. But they didn't, and her mother watched as they ruined her child's eating appetite and how she battled with a dysfunctional eating habit. After the movie, the studio took things to even more extreme levels. Mayer would describe Garland as his little hunchback because she had a curved spine. MGM began to give the actress appetite suppressant pills so she wouldn't eat much. They also fed her drugs that help her keep up with the studio's hectic schedule. The actress's love life managed to add to the stress the actress felt. Her first boyfriend ran off with Elizabeth Taylor and her first husband, David Ross, but they wouldn't last. Rose complained about how much the actress could eat. According to him, by MGM rules, his wife could only drink chicken broth and battled away hunger with appetite-reducing cigarettes. The pair divorced. It didn't help that Garland got rid of her pregnancy. Her mother and the studio ensured she did this so she could continue acting. The stress continued to consume the actress, and it got to the point she almost ended her life. She survived that attempt and would continue to do her job, but she was exhausted, and the studio continued to be relentless. The actress, in the middle of all this madness, managed to fall in love again, and it wasn't any better than her early attempts. She got married to Vincent Minnelli, a man who deeply loved her. They had a baby together, but while the child may have been a bundle of joy for them, Garland was far gone already. She was on the edge of a mental breakdown and was becoming more unstable. Eventually, Garland had to be checked into a mental institution, and after she left to work on yet another film, the actress made another attempt at her life. The work kept coming, and she worked in musical after musical without the audience knowing she was crumbling inside. No one would be convinced that she wasn't truly happy, especially how she performed excellently in Easter Parade alongside Fred Astaire. She took stress-relieving pills to be able to perform well in the film. Eventually, when the damage was done, the actress said no. She didn't exactly square up to the man like Elizabeth did, but she rebelled. The actress began to be absent from the studio, and when MGM found out what she was doing, they fired her. Finally, the actress was free, or maybe not. Well, the producer also soon had a taste of his own medicine. Louis was devoted to his studio, and he worked for more than 12 hours each day. He saw a doctor every day to ensure he was in top health. Eventually, the studio he gave so much to wanted him gone, and they managed to get him to resign. Mayer did so quietly, and eventually, he was consumed by his health. His frequent doctor visits couldn't save him, as leukemia ravaged his body and took his life. But the glitz and glamour of Hollywood can sometimes mask the pain and struggle behind the scenes, which brings us to our next video, where we'll explore why the legendary Catherine Deneuve had to become a master at hiding her pain.